Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here. I can't believe it's been a whole year since we started this adventure, and what a year it's been. Join me for a trip down memory lane as we look back at some of the standout moments from this year. There'll be clips from my trip to London, your favorite guests, and of course, that very unforgettable tea party. I'm going to tell you something incredibly embarrassing about that tea party. The dress I'm wearing in that tea party segment from last year, from June, I think, of last year, is still in my living room and with my luggage open. Sometimes I have been back to London since then, but I'll toss something out of the luggage and it's so cute on like a mannequin or something in my living room that I'm like, yes, I will look at that sparkly pink disco ball dress, 365 days a year. So it literally came out like a foot out of my luggage after I took it to London, and now it's just sitting in my living room because I'm a bum. It's been a wild ride, and I want to thank all of you for coming along. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, but you just watch me randomly because the algorithm is that good, go ahead and subscribe now. Make sure you like this video and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm glad you're here. Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here. Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here with Tom Bauer, Andrew Morton, Maureen, Callahan, Arthur Edwards, Valentine Lowe.
And I'll have all the news on what's going on here in the UK. About
Say your name. Say your name.
Oh, yeah, I've got
you handsome devil. And I'm Rupert Bell. And I'm Rupert Bell, and I'll have the latest on the Prince and Princess of Wales here in the UK.
I'm Ring Rusty Kinsey.
I love working with him. I love working with Camilla. They're just amazing people. This split with his brother is the worst part, because they were so close. I photographed them both since they were born. They come out in their mother's arms. And then Meghan came along and suddenly everything changed.
Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here, and I am in London. I can't believe I'm in London, and one of the first things I wanted to do was pounce on Arthur Edwards, who I have just been absolutely enamored with over the last few years. You are a royal photographer. You've been doing this for over 40 years, but you have such a sweet spirit, and I hate to read comments, but whenever I read the comments about things you do, everybody in the comments say they just want to hug you. You are so sweet. You're so thoughtful. And you really are passionate about the royal family. You know them inside and out. Do you feel protective of them, these days?
I do now, yes, but I didn't when I started. When I started, I was, and you've got to remember, in the late 70s and early 80s, newspapers in Britain were very, very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
And you needed to get the picture, and at all costs, and the competition was fierce. It was huge circulations, millions we were selling every day. And I remember having two serious rows with the Prince of Wales, now our king. I remember once in a field up in Sandringham, he berated me for 10 minutes, and another time down at Highgrove, I was walking along a public footpath, and he came up on his horse and he started screaming at me, "What are you doing on my land?" And I'm not on your land, I'm on a public footpath. And he said, "Well, public footpaths for walking on, not for taking photographs." And I said, "I'm just doing my job, And he said, "Some job." And I said, "Well, at least I've got a job, and only been on the paper about 18 months. And he took that as an insult, and of course he galloped off. And a couple of days later, his policeman come up to me and said, "What the hell happened down there?" So why? He said, "Well, we were sitting in the kitchen having coffee. He came in, he banged his whip on the table, the coffee cups went flying. He said, 'You're supposed to be guarding me,' he said, 'and Arthur Edwards is on my front lawn.'" So, it wasn't too great. And but what happened was, slowly, I was listening to this man, listening to his speeches. I was traveling with him. I went up into every rainforest in the world with him, where he's begged the people, the presidents, to stop ripping up this precious resource. And suddenly I realised this man was a visionary. He wasn't just the prince of the realm. He was very much a visionary, and he's been talking about the planet warming up for 30 years. And and we're seeing what's happening today. He's right. And of course, when he went on about poor architecture, he made this amazing speech when he said that the planners did more damage to St. Paul's Square, Paternoster Square, which surrounds St. Paul's Cathedral, than the Luftwaffe did, and it was an amazing speech. And he was right. And of course, the people that own those buildings ripped them down and put up beautiful buildings. And then he went on about organic food, and people were calling him a crank, and it's crazy. You go in a supermarket here, it's regular and organic, regular, organic. And so, I realized this man was something special. And I started to become, I've become to like him a lot, and I didn't want to offend him anymore. I didn't want to take pictures of him, pulling a face or anything like that. And suddenly and then one day, a government minister here insulted him in an article for another newspaper. And Mr. Murdoch, our proprietor, asked me if someone to defend the prince because he couldn't do it himself. And I wrote a very, well, I suppose, lovely piece about, what a great man he was and what he'd done. And from then on, things changed. He changed towards me and I changed towards him. And we then began to do lots of things in harmony. And of course, if you know this, but when he was 70, I asked him, we were coming back on a plane from Canada, and asked him, what are you going to do for your 70th birthday? And he said, I'd like a party, he said, for 70 people, all the same age as me, 70.
Oh.
So that was nice. Anyway, about a month before his 70th birthday, I get a call from his office. He said, the prince wants to know what you're doing about this party. So so I went to see the editor, and we organised it very quickly, and he came with Camilla, lovely Camilla. And our readers were there, and they all sang happy birthday to him. It was a really moving occasion. And I made a speech welcoming him. And in my speech, I said, of course, it wasn't always like this, as you remember. And he laughed, and I told a couple of jokes about our early days. And then
do you remember any of the jokes?
Oh yeah, well the first one was when we went to Yugoslavia. Our first royal tour I did with him, and as he went in to meet President Tito, welcome, and he said, how's the Queen? And he said, the Queen's very well, thank you, sir. And he said, have a cigarette. And Prince Charles said, no thanks, I gave them up when I was 12. And of course, they really loved that. And of course, then he made a speech, and he wasn't expected to, but he did. And he did it off the cuff, in which he said, of course, Arthur Edwards wasn't always like this. He said, I remember when he used to hide in the bushes. Once I hid in the bushes, but he remembers it so well. And of course, it was a wonderful occasion, and a great coup for our paper, of course, obviously, because that's the only thing he did on his birthday, only public thing he did on his birthday was come to the Sun party, and the readers loved it, and he met all the readers, and so did Camilla.
Why that handsome hunk Tom Selleck swooped in to save the day for Princess Diana, how Diana's family swooped in to save Prince Harry, and why were Kim Kardashian's boos cut from Tom Brady's Netflix roast. These are my LA diaries. Back in the UK, Prince Harry attended a Thanksgiving celebration at St. Paul's Cathedral on Wednesday to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games. I mean, truly, congratulations to him. That is pretty cool. The event was packed with veterans and wounded service people. Actor Damian Lewis recited a poem to the congregation before Harry read a passage from Corinthians and Isaiah. Notably absent, Meghan Markle and their children, Archie and Lily. Honestly, probably not the right venue for them. They're still very young, but it was a special day for Prince Harry, and I'm sure he missed Meghan. Even names like Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice were thrown around. We saw neither one of those individuals, and as to be expected, no sightings of Prince William or King Charles. Every camera was glued trying to get the shot of the lonely prince as he marched up the steps of the cathedral, but fear not, Harry wasn't completely on his own at the Invictus service. Princess Diana's siblings, Lady Jane Bellows and Earl Spencer, attended the anniversary event to show support for Prince Harry. Princess Diana's former chef, Darren McGrady, wrote that he was genuinely thrilled to see Diana's brother and sister there to support her youngest son, but said, wish they had supported his mother, Princess Diana, when she was alive. He said it, I didn't, don't at me. Now, unpopular opinion, I think this whole event was a beautifully orchestrated PR push for poor Prince Harry. And the addition of Princess Diana's siblings starts to build the narrative that Harry is much closer to them. So in turn, much more like Saint Diana than Prince William could ever be. The YouGov survey, this was over 2,000 people that were asked, found Prince William just ahead of his wife with 75%, the Princess of Wales 74%, but you're absolutely right, and the Princess Royal 71%. And Harry and Meghan actually aren't the least popular thanks to Prince Andrew, 60% giving an unfavorable opinion of Prince Harry, 63% said they did not like Meghan Markle. Is this because Prince William has handled cancer between his father and his wife so gracefully? Is it because we see him more often?
I'll tell you what I think about Prince William and his popularity. First of all, there's no doubt whatsoever he's the cleverest member of the royal family. You know, by their standards, he's the intellectual of the clan. Because of his cleverness, he's able to handle situations in the limelight with consummate skill. And so, therefore, he's had a very difficult path to tread recently, obviously because of his dad and because of his wife. And he is handling that to perfection. The people admire him. They admire his bravery in these adverse conditions. And the way he always has a smile for everyone. So, unlike Harry, who I think finds it very difficult to work out whether or not to put his right foot or his left foot forward. You know, Harry is as intellectually ungifted as William is gifted. Harry is struggling because he's dim, because he's thick. He can't work out how to work his way through the difficult media scene. And, you know, we hear that he's constantly furious with these various image advisors in America, you know, and that's why he's looking to Britain to see if somebody can help him over here. Now, William is intelligent enough to listen. You don't need image advisors. Be yourself. Be a decent person and people will like you. Why is Prince Andrew the only person that's less popular than Meghan and Harry? It's because he's probably the only member of the royal family who's a worse person than both of them. I mean, they're unpopular because they're not very nice. You know, look at what they've done. Look at what they've done. Look at his book. Harry, you know, we're hearing now is, you know, maybe trying to hand out olive branches to reforge his relationship with the royal family, just as the paperback version of his nasty little book Spare is coming out for Christmas. How is he going to reforge friendships with the royal family with that venomous novel, that venomous tome out on sale again? And they say, oh, it was so nice of Harry because he didn't add anything to the book. So that was a real olive branch to the royal family. Was it hell? Was it hell? While that book's on sale, no one in the royal family is going to want to talk to him. And he wants to get popular again in Britain. He used to be popular because he was just himself. He was a fun-loving lad with a laugh and a smile for everyone and a joke. He didn't take life too seriously. Now he's turned into this pompous little psycho-babble spewing West Coast idiot going on about first responders and God knows what. And he's just not likeable. And as for his wife, I don't think I have to explain how unlikable she is.
Hi guys, Kinsey Schofield here. The UK gets a pretty bad rap for their food over in the States. So I've come over here, I'm in the UK right now, to test out some of their most infamous meals, snacks, drinks, and I don't know if I'm mentally prepared for it, but here we go. Producer Matt just told me I have a chicken tikka masala, chicken tikka masala, and apparently this is like the plate. This is the official.
This is the national dish, even though it's not actually British.
It's an Indian dish, and this was one of the options on my Virgin flight over here, which I thought was curious. But now I know it's the national dish, thanks to producer Matthew. So do I mix it or do I do?
Yeah, you can.
Is it okay?
I think it's normal to.
But it's so pretty, the way this display is beautiful. Okay. I understand Matthew's enthusiasm behind this. This is absolutely delicious. I will actually opt to have this one on my next ride home.
Not too spicy.
Not too spicy. I was concerned about the spice, but this is yummy. I love this one. Okay. Next up is fish and chips. I love fish and chips. At home, I eat fish and chips. And one of my favorite things about being in the UK is like every pub you see, they have the same sign that says best fish and chips. So it's like, are you really? Like, what are the, what are the odds that each one of you are the best? So maybe these are the best fish and chips. They're the size of a fully formed fetus, so that concerns me a little bit, but let's try it out. Oh my gosh, this is so big. That's what she said. Delicious. I mean, how can you go wrong in this country? I give this like a 10 out of 10. This is so yum.
What do you think of the grease?
I don't care about it. Yeah. I think it's amazing. Also, your fries, for some ungodly reason, are like 3 times the size of American fries. It's pretty, you get a pretty good value over here if you're a French fry human being. This is delicious. I approve. This gets the American stamp of approval.
What sauce would you put on your chips?
Ketchup.
Fine.
Yum. Source told the publication they believed if Harry went back to the UK with zero fuss, zero publicity, and attended very mundane events, he could prove himself and win over the British public again. However, the nearly 10,000 comments underneath the article say otherwise. One user says almost 9,000 comments and 99% of them are the same opinion, that H should never be included in the royal family. There is nothing more to say. Nothing more to say, but plenty more comments. One reader suggested, first step has to be an unsolicited apology and acceptance that his public disloyalty was wrong on every level. Good luck with that. Another comment read, it is not uncommon for individuals who have failed to achieve self-sufficiency to return to their parents' basement. In this instance, the motivation seems to be financial instability rather than a desire to reconnect with family or demonstrate loyalty to one's country. That's pretty scathing. Here's a different theory in the comment section. I think there is a divorce imminent, and she will take him to the cleaners. Yikes. One user writes, I really do not understand why the male writers keep pursuing this idea as it is so unpopular. And if it happened, could be the beginning of the end of the monarchy in the UK. Most of the public, at least, are not fooled by what Harry and Meghan really want, the half-in, half-out role that was refused the first time. This includes taxpayer-funded security, of course. Straight to the point. Another user commented, if he is seeking a purely personal reconciliation with his father, that is up to the two of them. But there can be no return in any way to a public role as a member of the royal family. And whatever happens, he should be removed from the line of succession. Now here's the sassy take. The monarchy has survived for 1,000 years. Some two-bit actress thought she could bring it down. Well, that didn't work out, did it? They will never allow those two limpets back in any official capacity, that's for sure. Talk to me about, in my neck of the woods, Scotty Bowers, the famous Hollywood pimp. Ryan Murphy created a show about him. This story is almost too much to even, this sounds like something you'd script. It's almost too much to believe that this could be true.
I agree, and I found it, I was very skeptical of the Scotty Bowers story. Scotty Bowers, as you know, was a pimp to basically the Hollywood elite, and would find both male and female prostitutes for people. And he claims in his book, and indeed in the television series, that he was procuring both men and women for both Wallace and Edward. I interviewed the ghostwriter for the book. I interviewed the director of the program, both of them highly sensible, credible figures, and they totally believed everything that they'd been told by Scotty. Everything he'd said to them which they could verify, had been found to be true. And one of the things I found interesting is that there is evidence that the Duke and Wallis were bisexual. There's evidence that they may well have, they had a very sort of strange sex life, but they were also very keen to cover up the story. They pretended that they hadn't been to LA until almost the late 1950s, and I found evidence that they had been. So why should they lie about that unless they were trying to cover up why they were there? And for example, in an auction, I came across love letters that had been written to a man by the Duke of Windsor. So, but there are plenty of people who've got evidence of their bisexuality. So. Scotty Bowers, who is not always taken very seriously, I think is a perfectly reputable source.
Welcome to Recollections May Vary, a royal recap. I'm Kinsey Schofield with the Maureen Callahan. And on behalf of Los Angeles, California, I'd like to apologize for Meghan Markle. Maureen, you wrote the most incredible piece called Every American I Know is Saying the Same Thing After Disaster Tourist. Meghan delayed her Netflix show to focus on the LA fires. What was your initial instinct when you saw those videos and images coming out of LA of the Duke and Duchess of Misinformation making their way almost 200 miles down to LA? Did it feel like a photo op to you instinctually?
Well, 100%. I mean, it kind of surprised me a little bit, Kinsey, because I don't believe this was really her decision. I believe this was Netflix's decision, and they allowed her to say it was hers, much as when someone high profile has been fired from a job and they're allowed to say they are leaving to spend more time with their family. So I thought, though, that wow, like for once she's listening to people and she's making the right call. Like, put a pin in this show while she's, performing in a sort of very Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake way from a multi-million-dollar mansion in Montecito that's not even hers, because God forbid she should film in her own house. And I thought, okay, maybe she's going to maybe the apocalypse that is happening in Los Angeles right now will be enough for her to take a moment and say, whoa, not only is this not about me, but I should just go hide away for a little while this city burns to the ground and then begins the painful work of recovering. But no, she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She couldn't. I swear to God, Kinsey, I don't know what you thought, but when I heard the news that she was pausing the debut of this show, I thought, she must be thinking, I can't believe this is happening to me. Not to Los Angeles, not to California, not to America, but to me.
You wrote, you kind of broke down her statement, and I want to read you parts of her statement, and I'm going to mention your comments because they are my favorite. I mentioned them last night on TV too. I was like, my friend Maureen Callahan said, but I also read you Beyonce's statement that she released today, and I'd like your reaction to Meghan versus Beyonce, because apparently Beyonce had something dropping today and she chose to hold back on it, but I thought the tones were very different. So Meghan says, I'm thankful to my partners at Netflix, and you astutely point out those are your bosses, Meghan, not your peers, for supporting me. And you say me in delaying the launch as we focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California. You said it was vintage Meghan, verbose, vague, meaningless, and thoroughly unnecessary. Now, if you look at the release Beyonce put out today, it says the January 14th announcement will be postponed to a later date due to the devastation caused by the ongoing wildfires around areas of Los Angeles. I continue to pray for healing and rebuilding for the families suffering from trauma and loss. We are so blessed to have brave first responders who continue to work tirelessly to protect the Los Angeles community. To join and we encourage people to join our efforts in supporting those impacted. Please visit, and then she gives a website. Maureen, those are two completely different tones. One is like, I want to say thank God for the people that are doing the hard work. And Meghan's is like, I'm doing something tough by postponing my show. Is that what you felt like when you heard those?
No kidding. No kidding. Just the day before we had published, I ran a column, and this sort of goes to a larger problem right now with celebrity culture in general. And we're seeing why Americans increasingly have zero use for these people. Mandy Moore went on Instagram and was pushing a GoFundMe for donations for her brother-in-law. Mandy Moore made reportedly collectively 23 million just from This Is Us alone. And she's telling people to donate so that her brother-in-law can maybe recoup $60,000. And she ends this missive with, oh, by the way, if you don't like it, F off. F off. She's asking hardworking regular Americans for their own money that they can't afford to give. And then she's telling people who find this offensive to F off. And I just think that people have they have had it with this stuff. And, Beyonce, yes, to her credit, did she issue a statement that sort of meets the moment and recognizes that people are suffering and first responders are putting themselves in harm's way? Yes, but that's a low bar. I'm not going to give Beyonce a gold star for that either.
What you mentioned about Prince William, you imagine him being so worried about his children experiencing something similar. And we love, the entire family, seeing them as a unit. It gives us confidence in the future because they are just so sweet and united and well put together. It's a bland way of putting it, but they just seem like strength, I guess.
Oh my goodness, they're the perfect family. I mean, if Ralph Lauren did like a photo shoot, that's them, isn't it? They're just so picture perfect, but it seems authentic. They seem to, the siblings seem to get on really well. I love seeing footage of Charlotte sort of bossing both the boys around. George always looks a little bit pensive and like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. But isn't that sweet that you get the sense that actually the heir to he's the third in line, isn't he? Or how do you phrase it? He's not the next one, the one after. So second in line, he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and good that he's taking that seriously, even though he is only little. Charlotte's kind of the mummy of the gang, and then you've got Louis having a ball.
Yes.
Isn't that just so great? I mean, they are so entertaining. They seem like a lovely family. And, I think it's sort of modeled a bit on the Middleton sort of family dynamic, isn't it? The trio. And I do think their whole family model is, in terms of mum and dad as well, Kate and Wills, is modeled on the Middleton parents, who, as we saw in their video that they sort of gave us a behind the scenes last year when they were all around the Middletons table playing some fiercely competitive game. That's a really lovely tight unit, which William's been open about really wanting to model something that frankly he didn't get. Obviously there was the divorce, but things were a bit more formal back then, and family, and they've worked really hard to move away from that and create a bit more normality. So they do seem like a really happy, tight little unit. So long may that continue, because wouldn't wish that on anyone, to have that hanging over you, that worry about the future. But it could happen to anyone.
It could, and that's what Catherine says. Like, cherish every day. You never know what's around the corner, and it can happen to anyone. But just your definition of Louis, it is nice that Louis has so much personality, because I do miss that from Prince Harry. So he's kind of taken over that silly. We don't know what he's going to do next, but we know we're going to laugh and love it. Let's talk a little bit about, because when you and I talk about Catherine, a lot of the times we like to discuss what she's wearing, especially the fact that we can run out and grab it. Okay, Rupert, I think that it's pretty crucial that we acknowledge a pretty big deal over the last few days. Harry and Meghan celebrating their 6th wedding anniversary. They went on a double date with Brian and Tracy Robbins to their favorite steakhouse in Montecito. We see them at the steakhouse quite often. I think it's interesting that we're seeing them with Brian and Tracy. These are the two individuals that they went to the Bob Marley premiere with. They walked the carpet with them. Brian is a Paramount executive. Tracy received one of the golden jam jars, one of the cherished jam jars. I like to see that they are maintaining that relationship, because they burn through friends like I've seen some people burn through a pack of cigarettes.
Yes, and I think it is interesting. They can clearly see that there's mileage to be seen with this particular power couple, and they are a power couple. And when you're paying, I wonder who picked up the tab for the $175 porterhouse steak that is possibly on the menu, which they may have eaten. So it wouldn't have been a cheap night out, but I wondered whether they were prepared to pay for their friends to come along. So who was underwriting it? But fine, 6th wedding anniversary. I can't believe that it feels like it was 6 years ago that they were getting married, and the optimism that surrounded the marriage, and particularly in this country, what Meghan was going to bring to the royal party. Well, obviously in that 6 years, an awful lot of water has gone under the bridge. Most of it has been negative as far as they're concerned and their feeling of the royal family, because it went south very quickly. And that's the sad thing. So yes, if they're happily married, that's what they wanted to do, move to California, start a new life. Well, it would be very surprising if they weren't going out on dates to celebrate a wedding anniversary, because it's the new life they want. So happy days. But as you say, friendships, they do not seem to have long-term friendships, but there may be ulterior motives, says he cynically, as to why they're such good friends with these people.
That's so true. Well, I do think that 6 years is a big deal, based on, Harry and Meghan have really created this us against the world kind of relationship. They have there's no doubt that they've struggled throughout the last 6 years. And we saw, even in the Netflix documentary, the constant strain it felt like these two were under, whether they're suing this person or that person. There were a lot of really sad, dark moments throughout that docu-series, and they continue to sue people, and they can, when did they come up for a breath of fresh air? Because it does feel like they're constantly at war with someone. Is that stress on the relationship, or does that continue to strengthen the relationship?
Well, you hope now that they've got to put the stuff that's gone on behind them and move on, because if there has to be a line when they stop being negative about everything or their previous life. Yet at the same time, they want that piece of life. Let's be honest, going to Nigeria, now we're going to talk about it, the whole thing is they still see their royal connections. Well, they've actually got to now say, what are we? We are not a member of the royal family. We are a commercial entity. Let's be quite clear. That's what they're... Now, it may have a philanthropic sort of bent to it, and that they will be doing some good things through their foundations. But they are a commercially based couple now, and that's how they have to operate. And that means that they are doing commercial deals to make themselves relevant. But when it all comes down to it, so they still go round as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So what do they want to be? And I think that's what frustrates people. Their litigious nature is frustrating, but as you know, Kinsey, they want to control the narrative with an inch of their lives. And that's what they did in Nigeria and elsewhere. And that's the point of them. They want to feel that they're in total control. And that, of course, was the ultimate reason why they wanted to leave the royal family, because they didn't have the control and it wasn't going to be their show.
Do you consider, because I have received so many messages about this, and they're not positive, do you consider the Nigerian trip a success? Was that a win for them?
It sort of looked, because they controlled the optics, they would always be in a position to make it, happy, smiling people greeting them. I do not know whether it was beauty was only skin deep here in terms of the optics and what was really going on underneath. And I think that's the problem. It looked, for all intents and purposes, like a royal tour. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people in this country will be frustrated about, because they weren't on a royal tour. Yet they were fated by a Nigerian government that hasn't always played the right card, people's perception of what the Nigerian government is about. And it's a country with huge problems. The length and breadth of the land, there's great wealth, there's great poverty. Yet there they were ultimately trying to generate interest in the Invictus Games. But the idea of royal visits they have a soft politics, don't they? There is the sort of what goes on behind the scenes. The countries like having members of the royal family there, and then behind the scenes, all the politicians and all the sort of trade people are beavering away in the background behind the optics of the royal family, giving a sort of feel-good factor to that particular royal visit. That's why they are, we've got the Emperor and Empress of Japan coming. There's obviously political undertones to that, even though they will be given the full red carpet treatment. So royal tours are important, but not Duke and Duchess of Sussex royal tours. They have no benefit now. And I think maybe members of the royal family, and if you read some of the press, are sort of saying, what is going on here? Because, they don't want to do royal tours, and yet there they were on one that looked all bar a royal tour, just without the British press being on hand to maybe upset the apple cart if things didn't go quite as well as they'd like.
Well, there was that famous quote that Valentine Lowe revealed, Meghan saying, "I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this." In this specific scenario, she controlled everything. She controlled her schedule. She controlled what she wore. She was in control. And I think that is one of the things, aside from controlling the narrative, I think just control in general is something that is so important to them. So she probably did enjoy this a little bit more than she enjoyed a typical royal tour. I can't believe you guys are giving me biscuits and not tea. Somebody dropped the ball. Or the biscuit. Somebody dropped the biscuit. What kind is this?
This is a rich tea.
A rich tea without tea, Matthew?
Yeah,
kind of bogus. Oh, this is yum. This is rich. I feel like a grown-up eating this. This is good. This is nice. Guilt-free. Nice and skinny, not like the last fatty I stuck down my throat. This is good. This is an A+. So this looks very similar to my last biscuit, Matthew, but how is this different?
This is a digestive. It's just
a digestive? Is it like supposed to help you like pass things through?
It's slightly more indulgent.
But seriously, the word digest in the States means something like that old people are really concerned about. Like, you gotta eat your yogurt, you gotta digest that stuff. And then you would brand it like as something sexy for a biscuit? I love yogurt and I love digestion. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I prefer the last one. I mean, in America we have animal crackers. This is giving animal cracker.
Quite often it's eaten with cheese as well.
Thanks, Matt. This is cute and small. Looks like a token. What is this?
A ginger nut.
Oh, that's what we call you behind your back. This is so yummy. I knew I'd be like biscuits all the way. I'd be like all in because they're carbs. This is delicious. I'm very happy with this. I will be taking this entire box home with me. Thank you. Thank you and good night.
This is a custard cream.
Oh, custard cream. This is the 1 gram likes? It is visually very stimulating. Like, I'm loving it. Oh my gosh, these are yummy. So in what setting am I eating this?
7 years old, there's a biscuit tin in the kitchen, you've just been playing out with your friends, and you come home and have a custard cream.
Wow, you've just painted a beautiful picture, Matthew. And you know what? I wouldn't have a tea. I'd have a Coke Zero. But I like this biscuit.
bourbon.
Oh, a bourbon. A bourbon.
It's like a chocolate version of the last one you had.
Oh, well, then I'm definitely going to be down. A bourbon. Thank you. Oh my God, I love it so much I would marry it. This is so good. You guys get to eat these just like whenever you want. I love your life. Minus the eels. I would move over here and eat all your food. This one reminds me of Christmas. Like, how cute is that? It looks like a little Christmas ornament. It's very festive. Matthew, what can you tell me about I've got my biscuit expert.
It's a jammy dodger.
Sounds like something that my grandpa would like yell at an ex-boyfriend. You're a jammy dodger. Get off my lawn. It's pretty, but I don't know if I'd ever pursue this on purpose. Oh my God, you're offended. I apologize. Do you want the rest of this? Boy, oh boy, did the Hollywood Reporter's piece chap Meghan's. Last week, we reported that the Hollywood Reporter was defending itself against accusations that they were lying in a piece titled Why Hollywood Keeps Quitting Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The Hollywood Reporter's editor-in-chief, Mayor Rashawn, spoke to Access Hollywood and revealed additional details about what went into their piece, including the fact that they spoke to a dozen sources, with one of their sources still working for Prince Harry and Meghan. Los Angeles sources confirmed some of the issues employees faced at Kensington Palace, saying everyone's terrified of Meghan. She belittles people. She doesn't take advice. They're both poor decision makers. They change their minds frequently, with one source arguing that Harry is a very, very charming person, no airs at all, but he's very much an enabler, and she's just terrible. The industry go-to warns, would you work for Harry and Meghan? Ex-employees say run away. The Hollywood Reporter also said Meghan is absolutely relentless and that she marches around like a dictator in high heels, fuming and barking orders. I've watched her reduce grown men to tears. Shortly after the article was published, Harry and Meghan responded with several rebuttals. Sussex sources told The Express there were fears amongst Harry and Meghan that there could be a disgruntled former member of staff who was putting out mistruths which were designed to make the Sussexes look bad. A source close to the couple told the newspaper the Sussex team have had more than enough of these types of articles. It's simply not true. One person that alleges to work with Archwell told GB News that the story was ridiculous because Harry and Meghan work from home and not in their offices. As if a Hollywood Reporter source does not potentially work for WME, Netflix, or whatever third-party contractor is building out a condiments website. It's just impossible. We can't hear stomping. She's barefoot in Montecito. The Sussex's biggest campaign to shut down the Hollywood Reporter comes in the form of Us Weekly magazine. Let's quickly recap, and then we'll tell you what we know about Meghan's latest magazine cover. It's no secret that Harry and Meghan want you to ignore Archwell's mass exodus, but the Hollywood Reporter's not about to. And that's why editor-in-chief Mayor Rashawn defended their piece to Access Hollywood. He told the outlet, our reporter talked to, I think, a dozen people. Most of them are people who've worked very closely with the couple in various capacities now and previously. He said, our reporter talked to one very high up source who worked for the couple who said everyone is terrified of Meghan Markle. Mayer explained Duchess Difficult is a name that trailed Meghan Markle for quite a few years. What is new is this notion that coming to America, that a lot of those rumors were manufactured by the palace. And the reporting that we did suggests that that probably isn't true, that there is this steel undercurrent of fear. One of the most important quotes from the editor-in-chief was about Harry and Meghan's charitable pursuits, saying the couple does help a lot of people. Two things can be possible at once. So they can be horrible bosses, but also help people. Fast forward to this week, and Meghan Markle has found herself on a glossy new magazine cover. Is she giving us a glimpse of her fall fashion favorites? No. Recipes from Nigeria. A step-by-step explanation on how to can jam? No, ma'am. The Duchess and Co. continue to give these bully allegations life by encouraging former and current employees to talk to Us Weekly magazine. It's literally the Streisand effect, the quote, phenomenon that occurs when an attempt to hide or remove information results in the information spreading further. The term is named after singer and actress Barbra Streisand, whose 2003 lawsuit against a photographer drew more attention to the photo she was trying to suppress. Now, Us Weekly magazine wants you to believe that they got a jackpot cover story with exclusive, unheard of access to current and former staff members that worked under Prince Harry, but most importantly, Meghan Markle, Duchess difficult. In a video uploaded to Us Weekly's YouTube, their editor-in-chief, Dan Wakeford, said, "This week we chose to put Meghan Markle as one of our covers again. To be honest, I didn't expect to do another cover on Meghan quite so soon, as we've already covered her return to the spotlight just 2 months ago. However, Meghan was thrust into the center of the news once again because of negative headlines about how she conducts herself as a boss." He regurgitates some of the Hollywood Reporter material and tries to downplay it by saying their sources are only anonymous, but Us Weekly found people willing to talk on the record. Patting themselves on the back, he said, "It's rare for people who work for celebrities and notable figures in the public eye to talk on the record about their jobs behind the scenes. So when we got the opportunity to talk to current and former employees of the Duchess of Sussex and her husband, Prince Harry, I felt it was compelling enough to do a cover story." Just note how the Hollywood Reporter refers to her as Meghan Markle, and her friends at Us Weekly call her the Duchess of Sussex. I think that speaks volumes. He says, "We talked to 5 staff on the record and another 2 off the record, and they say the previous anonymous allegations made are wildly inaccurate and damaging." No, you know what, Sherlock? They reveal an unprecedented look into Meghan and Harry's work and also their private world behind the scenes. All 7 employees had a positive experience working for Meghan and Harry. Of course they did. The Sussexes handpicked them to talk to you. He says Josh Kettler, who left in August, says he was warmly welcomed and they're dedicated and hardworking. Well, I will certainly admit that they are dedicated and hardworking when it comes to arguing with headlines they don't like. One former employee tells Us Weekly that some of her favorite memories were during the weekly meetings in Montecito where Meghan served the most incredible lunches and snacks. Nice little subliminal plug for American Riviera Orchard's cooking show. I'm sorry, but if a stranger shows up at my house to write a profile on me, I'm not going to say anything out loud that I don't think might potentially end up in print. And this is not a 20-year-old girl. This is a 40-year-old woman who has spent the last 20 years of her life or more clawing all over Los Angeles, California between Shakira auditions and, miming fellatio and 90210 pilots. She's so desperate for any sort of fame whatsoever that she knows exactly what she's doing when she says something in front of a journalist that is there assigned to write a profile on her. I think she said specifically that, she didn't sign an NDA and that she found a journal at Frogmore Cottage one of the last times she was there, which alluded to the fact that she had more dirt. Mm-hmm. They're untrustworthy. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. And it seems like every time they do something big, this is horrible, but someone passes away. It was a month after they did the Oprah Winfrey interview that Prince Philip died. She does the cut. The Queen dies a few weeks later. It's like, oh, what is that omen?
It's so ghoulish. You can't tell me that Harry and Meghan weren't apprised as to the failing health of his grandparents. And they sit and they do this. And they for Philip's last days, for Queen Elizabeth's last days, these are the slings and arrows that are being thrown their way by an ungrateful grandson and his insufferable wife. The Queen wanted to give them every way out that was graceful and while keeping the door open for them, because in her wisdom, she knew the American experiment would not work out. Why? Because Harry is dim, entitled, and has zero internal resources. And this woman is a viper. And to your point, she is a creature of Hollywood. She was born and raised on Hollywood sets. Her father was a lighting director who used his pull to get his untalented daughter into auditions. She doesn't know how the American media works.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I feel so terrible for her. You can't be an idiot and the smartest woman in the room at the same time. It's one or the other. Pick one.
Right. Well, I mean, the longer we are, with her in this journey, I really think she is an idiot because I thought she was beautiful and smart at the beginning, but to launch her influencer brand, how frivolous and irrelevant on the day of 2 terror attacks really floored me. And I kept saying, I'm surprised that I'm surprised. I might have even said that to you. I'm surprised that she would do this when we were so upset over everything that was going on. Let's talk about the trailer. 89% negative reaction. So that's 89% thumbs down. It was over 103,000 thumbs down the last time I looked, with not even 13,000 thumbs up so far. 1 million people have watched the trailer. Netflix blessing us with the comment section turned on. I love this comment by one, and I'm sorry that I'm forgetting the handle, but somebody said, the woman that wrote the soap company complaining that they alluded to the fact that women belong in the kitchen, now branding herself in the kitchen. I mean, the irony, every time this woman is in front of a microphone, she tries to retell us the soap story about how when she was 11 years old, she wrote the soap company and said it should not be women all over the world in the kitchen. And she swears to God they changed the language because of her, and that Hillary Clinton was moved by the letter she wrote her. Just what is your reaction to, what was your first reaction when Do You Believe in Magic kicks on and you're watching this Netflix trailer play out?
Okay, 2 thoughts. First, to your thing about that letter that we never stop hearing about that she wrote at age 11. I have read, and again, I could be wrong, so I'm going to just couch this as my opinion, but I have read that it wasn't like something this genius little girl was activated to do of her own volition. It was like a class project, like write a letter, get out of here with this. Okay, number one. Number two, the trailer opens with the Love and Spoonfuls, Do You Believe in Magic doing the heavy lift. Now, the phrase that comes after Do You Believe in Magic in that song, the lyric is in a young girl's heart. You believe in magic in a young girl's heart. I don't know, maybe. Do I believe in magic in like a middle-aged divorcee who climbed her way up a greasy pole to marry a beta prince who's now trying her 8 millionth attempt to become famous and likable on her own in this trailer that has zero to offer me, that is like gouge your eyes out boring? I don't believe in magic. I don't. What do you think? Tell me what you think.
He's killed the dream for you. I hate that for you. Well, first of all, we spoke a second ago about how there's all this hype around how Meghan disappeared last year because she was building this brand. She was being an entrepreneur, all this behind the scenes work, and she's such a perfectionist. Well, last night at the Golden Globes, I believe it was Entertainment Tonight, they asked Mindy Kaling what it was like going to, she's on Meghan Markle's new show. What did Meghan cook for you? And Mindy Kaling kind of says, you know what? She called me 2 months postpartum and said, hey, do you want to come over? I'm going to cook for you and we'll walk through my garden. And I was like, yeah, there's always good food around Meghan Markle, which is like not the best endorsement for friendship, free food. But I looked up the birth of her kid. She was born towards the end of February 2024. That is in April that Meghan would have been making that phone call to Mindy Kaling. She wrapped around April. So, Maureen, how much time was invested and how much thought was invested into this project if Mindy is a last minute addition? And that is the biggest name that she was capable of securing. And we know that because she's featured in the trailer. She's calling her month of, week of, and saying, hey, do you want to come down here and record this? That's not a lot of preparation going into this thing. What the is this? What is this?
Jellied eels.
Oh my God, that's so gross. You guys eat this on purpose?
It's more of an old East London delicacy. No one really eats them now.
Like, define delicacy. Like, jellied eels. No one eats this anymore, but we have decided to put it in front of your face. That's cruelty on a completely new level, Matthew. Like,
Ooh.
oh my God. Oh my God. All right, I'm gonna do this.
Feels like a bush tucker trial.
Yeah, am I on Survivor right now? Oh, it's just so fishy. I feel like, oh my gosh, I just stuck my entire face in an aquarium. What if I just do half of it? Oh, ooh, oh, ooh, oh.
I think we need a new water.
That was so gross. Well, I cannot believe people eat this on purpose or ate this on purpose. This was something that they did, like they pursued. They went to the market and they said, yes, I'll have 3 of those. And then they paid for those. They paid money. And then they went home and they ate them on purpose. Not if there was, I'd rather have a box of ramen for the rest of my life than ever put this thing in my mouth again.
Yeah.
It tastes like if you were to eat the Little Mermaid.
Actually not bad.
Literally, no one had shared or tried the eel thing that they just made me eat, but everybody's munching on the black pudding. So obviously, I'm a little more enthusiastic about the black pudding than the other stuff. Pudding where I'm from is like Jello. Bill Cosby would this is not the that. I feel like it's definitely.
It's a breakfast food.
It's a breakfast, okay. Oh wait. What's going on the... Yeah, this is good. Yes, I could get behind this.
So, do you want to know what it is?
Probably not. What is this?
It's pig's blood.
Stop! What? You guys are crazy! I love pigs. They're so cute. They're caring animals. Oh my gosh. You know what? For the longest time, I thought ham was a bird. And then when I found out it was a pig, I felt so bad about it. And now imagine my horror finding out this pudding patty is actually Babe. It was pretty good though, it was pretty good. So I'll give you guys that. Horrible that we've just slaughtered a pig for this teeny tiny patty, but pretty delicious. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Now we are moving on to some savory snacks. Why would anybody feel like pork scratchings sounds savory? Or pork, should I eat it before I look at the ingredients or description? Should I just do it?
Yeah, just get in there.
Pork scratchings. Mate, that piece is big. This seems unnecessary.
So very much a pub snack. So with your pint of lager.
Are you paying for it or is it free?
Oh no, yeah, there's nothing free.
This is disgusting. What's happening here? It's pig, right? And clearance. Thanks, guys. I see you guys went all out.
I'm not. You could check on the back what the pork content is, though.
I don't want to know. I feel like these are the kind of things that you give your dog on Saturdays after a nice little walk. Yeah, this is not something I'll ever eat again in my entire life. Not even to impress a boy. No, thank you. Victoria seems like a much more critical and better judge of character. At what point do you think Victoria saw the Sussexes as a liability to the Beckham brand?
Well, I think it's mixed. I think that once she saw Meghan when she came to London in 2016, 2018, and she reached out to Victoria to get freebies, Victoria was happy to see her clothes on Meghan. Very good looking woman, a duchess. Whatever Meghan was wearing would be an instant sellout. But Meghan had her own way of dealing with people who were trying to use her. She wanted not only freebies, but wanted some sort of payment too, which wasn't allowed under the rules of the Royal Palace. So that stung Meghan. I think Meghan then got worried, as I tell in the book, about when David was asked by Harry to come to Sydney, Australia, to help launch the Invictus Games, the competition for disabled servicemen. And Beckham went to Sydney, flew all the way across the world with Victoria, and got to the stadium only to find that he was snubbed by Harry. He was ignored, and as my book reveals, that was because Meghan had decided she didn't want Victoria and David to have the publicity while she was in Australia. She wanted to dominate the newspaper headlines and not let them intrude. So I think there's a lot of jealousy there. And Meghan, in the end, was very ungrateful because she had been using the Beckhams' home in Los Angeles, in I think it's Beverly Hills somewhere, when she did her private trips to LA to see her mother and see some friends there. And she never publicly acknowledged that debt. So it's a very tumultuous relationship. Both wanted something from each other, and it seemed to have become a one-way street at one time.
That is so true. I mean, I took away two things from what you just said. A, we only acknowledge Tyler Perry. We'll acknowledge Tyler Perry's house. We'll acknowledge Tyler Perry's private jet, but we're not going to acknowledge the Beckhams, which seems kind of cruel. And then additionally, Victoria might have met her match when it comes to jealousy, because Meghan Markle is, clearly a very jealous individual as well. The Beckhams are so strategic and controlling when it comes to media attention. What could the Sussexes learn from the Beckhams when it comes to how they manage to manipulate the media?
Well, I think that the Sussex have tried to manipulate the media. I think the original Netflix interview with, or the one originally with Oprah Winfrey, was a huge attempt to manipulate the media. The misfortune was that Meghan said 17 things in that interview which were starkly untrue, whereas the Beckhams are far too clever to ever put on a video series that they've done anything which is ostensibly clearly untrue or will be seized on, although many of the things in the Netflix series about the Beckhams were absolutely untrue. But they got away with it. I mean, I list them in the book. But there's a sort of sympathy towards the Beckhams in the British media because of the Beckhams' brilliant manipulation of the media, that they're allowed to get away with it, whereas the Sussexes, Meghan has behaved so badly, Harry has been so disloyal to his family, that they start from such a advantage, the Sussexes, that they can't actually recover any sympathy from the public because of the way they treated the Queen, the King, and the general public, who were initially so supportive of them.
Right. I just imagine David Beckham standing in that queue for 11 hours when you talk about that. There is something, the queue to see the Queen, pay his respects to the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth. There is something that is so much more authentic and sincere about David Beckham, and he seems to know when to lean into stories that Prince Harry is just oblivious to.
Well, absolutely. But of course, the queuing to see the Queen, last respects to the Queen, was very carefully contrived by his media advisors. And isn't it funny how the media got a tip-off just 2 hours after he joined the queue? So I think that I'm sure it was sincere. He certainly is a monarchist, and it worked brilliantly for him. I think the trouble with Harry and Meghan, that their loyalty and their sort of is just so phony. Nobody believes that they have respect for the Queen after the way they treated the Queen. Nobody believes when Harry dashed to London to see his sick father that he really wanted to commiserate after the way he treated his father, and more importantly, his brother and Princess Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge. I mean, that was terrible, the way they treated Kate and lied about her. And so I think, you know, it's just, they started off brilliantly, the Sussexes, and threw it away. The genius of the Beckhams is that for 25 years, they've sustained the fiction, the image, and the brand. And the Sussexes would love to have emulated the Beckhams, but I think it's too late for that for them.
Amen. All right, you talked about Prince Harry and Meghan lying about the Princess of Wales, Catherine. Now, ITV has announced that Prince Harry has taken part in a documentary about phone hacking. I'm just curious to know, is violating someone else's privacy really the hill Prince Harry wants to die on? I mean, has he read the pages of Spare? Has he read Omid Scobie's Endgame? It does feel like the royal family has had their privacy violated immensely over the last 4 years, specifically by the Sussexes.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the hypocrisy is phenomenal, but intelligence is not one of Harry's greatest assets. He's very clever at being unable to understand his own shortcomings and the contradictions in his own posture. It is extraordinary that he's agreed to do that, if it actually does happen, because it puts a further rift between him and Britain and between him and the royal family. But, you know, he's a damaged young man, and he's living with a woman who hates the media because they don't do what she wants, who's totally failed to manipulate the media in the same way the Beckhams have. And so he's angry. Harry is angry, and he has become a tool of a group of anti-media lawyers and other agitators in London who want to destroy the media here because it's profitable for them. And he can't see a way out of it for the simple reason he has no purpose in life anymore, Harry. He had a purpose when he lived in London and was a member of the royal family. But there he is on the West Coast. He can go paddling, he can sit in his garden and smoke. But what else has he got to do?
American Riviera orgasm.
Oh my gosh!
That's what it is. That works, doesn't it?
Hi all, Kinsey Schofield here, and I'm in the UK. We thought it would be fun to have an official tea party. It's a boys' club today. I'm just one of the boys, and I couldn't be more thrilled with that. Thank you so much for being here. I've got Christo Fufas right here,
Hello.
The co-host of Pump Up the Jam, an absolute heathen. He has stalled us for 20 minutes. And then over here I have Kevin O'Sullivan. I love you so much, Kevin. Thank you for doing this. I know that there's like 500 other things you'd rather be doing, so I really appreciate you being here. And then Ryan Mark Parsons, this is our first date.
Yeah,
so
we've never met before.
I know.
You've turned me straight.
Well, and that is why you're here. But a brilliant commentator, culture commentator, and a lover of the British royal family. And I think we all love the British royal family, don't we?
Yes, we do. Of course
Absolutely.
we do.
Okay, I know you do.
Why do they get, oh my God, I love you, so great to be here. He's kept us waiting for 20 minutes.
That's true.
Because this is the honest hour.
Oh, the honest hour. Okay, she likes me the least, that's fair enough.
All right, so you guys know I love the United Kingdom. I love to visit you. What's your favorite part of being from the UK?
Okay, well, I love the pageantry. Yeah. I love the fact that we've got so many problems in the UK and so many things that we complain about and so many things that we don't like and so many things that we analyse and so many things that are irritating or that people find irritating. However, when the proverbial hits the fan and we need to do a coronation or a funeral or a troop in the colour, we get it together better than any other nation in the world. And we have that pageantry, we have all of that tradition, we have all of it, and no other country can beat us for that.
Well, that's true. I cannot deny that. Kev?
What do I like about Britain? Having lived in your fine country, of course.
That's right. He lives in LA.
I can compare and contrast. I like irony.
Yes.
Which you don't get in America. Try making a sarcastic, satirical joke in America. They'll take you at face value. say things like, "Oh, I love it when babies get killed." Do you? Why?
That was an extreme. We'll fix that in edit.
But I want to put it that
We've gone there.
and the other thing, I'm nicking two things that I like about living in Britain. That's football, proper football, soccer. So for me, that makes it all worthwhile. When I was in the States, I used to miss it terribly and have to get up at like 6 a.m. to go down to Santa Monica to watch football matches, and it doesn't work.
It just wasn't for you, huh?
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, what about you?
See, this is probably going to be quite contentious.
Uh-oh.
But I love British food, and I don't understand why we've got such a bad reputation for British food. I love a crisp sandwich. I think that's really quintessentially British. No, a chip butty. That's quintessentially British.
Have you got any other examples that don't involve something going between two pieces of bread?
Sausages and mashed potato, quintessentially British. Absolute. Have you had that yet? Absolute delicacy.
Did I have that?
Sausage and mash.
Sausage and mash with
Did
a
I
bit of
have
gravy.
It's
No.
horrible.
Oh.
really
It's not horrible. It's not horrible. Fish and chips. We get
Delicious.
slated so much,
I like
but we've got
those.
so many amazing delicacies that I think need to be celebrated more.
I agree
Eels?
With you. I agree with you.
Jellied eel?
Not eel. Not eel.
No?
No.
All right.
No. Sausage roll. Have you had a sausage roll?
Was that from Greg's?
Yeah, they do the best sausage rolls. But all of this stuff is life changing. And I think we need a better reputation internationally for our food. And
Okay.
I'm fighting for that here.
Living for your enthusiasm. We will start that change.org petition as soon as we leave the building. So let's jump into some of our topics. We do have, speaking of us versus them, we have two big elections coming up.
We do.
But is there enthusiasm for either one of them is really what I want to know. When we've got Joe Biden, I hear a lot of negativity about Keir Starmer, but I also hear that he could potentially win.
Could potentially win. He's going to storm it, definitely. God knows why. He's going to win by default because after, 13 years of Tory rule, it's cyclical. People have had enough. They want to change. And unfortunately, the change we're going to get will be Keir Starmer. But it is interesting, both sides of the Atlantic. You know, in America, and we're saying this about America as well, is that the best they can do? 2 octogenarians, these 2 old dudes, no good. Who wants them? Well, you'll find everywhere you go in the world, when you have 2 candidates, 3 candidates for election, the entire nation will say, is this the best we can do? So our choices over here are pretty lousy, and the choices in America are pretty lousy too, but that's the way of the world.
I mean, this is what you do. What are you thinking, watching what's going on in the political space right now?
Well, I've been on the campaign trail for, I think over 3 weeks. Every single day since the election's been called, I've been on the doorsteps talking to British voters. And I think it is a travesty that we've got Keir Starmer, who's looking likely to be the next Prime Minister with a supermajority representing the Labour Party that's likely to be bigger than Margaret Thatcher's, right? Someone as iconic as Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair. So that's why I'm fighting for the Conservative Party to make sure that we get an opposition to scrutinise the Labour Party to make sure Keir Starmer doesn't have a blank cheque to do whatever he likes.
So wait a second, you're fighting for the Conservative Party while you still can.
Yes.
In terms of them actually existing, because after the election, they're probably going to get pulverised into oblivion.
Well, it's looking dire.
Do you know why? Because they're absolutely useless.
But not as useless as Joe Biden. I saw him at the G7 event, and he was just standing there. Like, what is wrong with this guy? He's your president. He should not be president in that state. I mean, I feel sorry for you guys over there, because if that were my leader, I think I'd be wanting to come here like you.
Yeah,
Feel sorry for us. Feel sorry for the world. This is the most powerful man on the face of the planet, with his finger on the button, and he doesn't even know what day it is, doesn't know when his son was born, can't remember when he was vice president. It's absolutely beyond a joke. It is ridiculous that America is fixing to put this guy in the hot seat for 4 more terrifying years.
I mean, do you think Joe Biden will be reelected? Or is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about Thatcher. You have me at Thatcher.
Cartoon marks around his eyes.
Thatcher. Because I think you raised a really good point about Thatcher and about actually all of our leaders. We haven't had a politician that cares more about being right than being liked for years. And I think that is a real, real ideologically based politician, a politician that is just based on what they believe rather than opinion polls or flip-flopping or all those things. And I think that our politics has suffered massively as a result of it. I think, Kevin, you're absolutely right. When Labour win, it won't be a vote for Labour, it will be a vote just against what's been happening for the last 13 or 14 years. I think Biden, no one knows, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know who he is, he seems to be deeply, deeply unsuitable. I don't love Trump, but I love how much Trump annoys people. I mean, I love the hysteria around Trump, and I find him incredibly entertaining. And I wonder as well, and people don't always agree with me, but when we're looking at our enemies around the world and, all this sort of instability, the fact that Trump is so unhinged, I wonder if that almost makes us a bit safer because the enemies kind of go, well, we actually have no idea what he'll do because he's completely mad. And so I wonder if in a weird way we're safer. The only thing I will say about Trump, going back to him though, is he shouldn't have walked in front of the Queen, bringing it back to the royals.
Well, that is
he did adore her, but he shouldn't have walked. Don't roll your eyes at me, O'Sullivan.
He didn't see her. I mean,
but he should have been looking for her.
Never sit next to the Queen, or when she was alive. She was absolutely miniature.
So sweet and small.
I'm just saying that is the one black mark, well, not just the only one, but that's one of the black marks that gets the name. I don't know what you would call Sunakism at all.
Well, he'll be remembered as completely useless, utterly pointless, a waste of time, and in the annals of prime ministers may well go down as worse than Liz Truss.
Oh, wow.
At least Liz Truss didn't have long enough to make a catastrophe of the country. Sunak, I think he's a decent guy.
I do too.
I think he's a nice little guy, doesn't know what conservatism is, and he's an absolutely hopeless politician.
Well, I did actually meet on the campaign trail when I was in Milton Keynes. I met Rishi Sunak and I had a 5-minute chat with him. And out of all of the politicians I've met, I think he's actually the most personable politician.
Right guy,
he actually seems like he is listening to you. But I think, unfortunately, most people are going to remember him for not having Sky TV when he was younger.
Yeah,
I know.
That's the kind of legacy he's going to leave.
Leaving the commemorations early was
so misjudged. That was bad.
But at least Truss, I mean, Truss was only in for a few weeks, but you knew what Trussism was. I mean, she at least had a plan and you knew what she stood for. She went to the destination in the wrong way, but the destination was correct and you knew what she stood for.
Yeah, but the lettuce outlasted Liz Truss. I think that's going to be her greatest memory. An actual lettuce lasted longer than Liz Truss.
Speaking of lettuce, there's lettuce in our sandwiches.
Oh, should we, are we going to crack into this?
No, I just... I don't know if these are props. Are these props?
Are they purely a prop? I'm starving.
I don't know.
Can I try it? I'll try the egg.
I'm going to eat one.
While you eat them, I want to know who your dream royal dinner party guests are. I think that mine is obviously Princess Diana. Oh my gosh, she's got stories.
Oh, sorry, I'm actually eating now.
Yeah, you are. Go to town. I think I would want Prince William, just so I could stare at him lovingly, and then his wife, just to make sure that
there was no inappropriate behaviour on your behalf.
Just to make sure that no one accused me of anything.
So it might still happen. You just don't want to be accused.
No, I'm just saying that just so all of my bases are clear. But I also love his wife. I love the Princess of Wales. But also, there are so many good royals.
Yeah. I'd have Meghan there.
Oh, really?
I'd have Meghan at a dinner party. I'd want to see how she operates. I'd want to be fascinated by it. And that if Meghan was there, we'd all be arriving by private jet. We would all have blacked out Range Rovers from the private airfield. That you would have Cristal champagne and the best there. Otherwise, that she would be referred to as Duchess. It would be high end. We'd have a jam and we'd have a biscuit for the dog. So,
But she'd be talking about herself the whole time. The whole conversation would just be about her. I mean, is that the kind of person you want at a dinner party?
Her soap story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
How
I'd
soporific.
have her there, but I wouldn't just have her. Can I have Margaret Thatcher? I know she's not royal, but she thought she was by the end.
She's political royalty.
Yeah, I want Thatcher as well. I'd put Thatcher next to Meghan. See how that would get along.
Put Thatcher next to Meghan now.
Yeah.
Yeah, put Maggie's skeleton there.
Oh my God.
See how that goes. Yeah, that'd be quite a good dinner party, wouldn't it? Maggie, you haven't been eating. You know,
Yeah.
you need to eat something.
You can fit into those tiny skirts now.
Here's a dog biscuit.
Yeah, so I'll have those two. And Queen Elizabeth and probably Prince Philip as well. Put Prince Philip next to
So
me.
you're having the entire royal family?
Yeah, that's pretty.
Haven't got any
bold.
left.
Yeah, and not Margaret and the Fergie and Diana. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I'd probably have.
Who would you have?
King Henry VIII. I'll go back a bit. I'd find out why he was so angry. What actually happened to his wives? I'd be so intrigued. I think that would.
I think they lost their heads.
Yeah.
Well, some of them did. Yeah, but why was he so furious? And why was
Because he couldn't
so...
divorce them.
I think he'd just be a really fun guest, as well as the Queen. I think I never got to meet the Queen. I went to the Lying Estate twice.
Oh.
Obviously, she was dead.
Was Philip Schofield next to you?
No, I didn't see him.
Okay.
No, but
He was ahead. He was way ahead.
skipped the queue, right?
You saw a glimpse of him as he
Yeah,
walked
zooming
by.
past with Holly Willoughby. But yeah, I would definitely have the Queen there. I mean, I was gutted I never got to meet her when she was alive. But, you know, it's kind of the same, isn't it? In a
I
coffin.
met her.
You did? Tell us. I didn't know you've met Queen
I
Elizabeth.
spoke to her for 8 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
You know, yeah, I must have told you that story
No,
before.
no, I haven't
I
heard
was
this
at the
story.
Royal Variety performance
Okay.
quite a few years ago. I'll tell you, this dates it. It was when the cast, you're like this, Krista, it was when the cast of Dallas were there for Who Shot JR.
Sorry, we're swapping places.
Yeah, so it was Larry Hagman, Linda Gray, Patrick Duffy, the whole gang were there. So what happened? She was desperate to get out, but Prince Philip was much more chatty. Mm-hmm. So she zoomed around this people. She goes, yeah, good to see you, we're out of here. She gets to the end of the line and turns round, and Philip is, I'm not kidding you, is about 20 people back.
No.
And so she goes, ew. So she sort of stood there and turned around and said, did you enjoy the show? And I said, yes, ma'am, did you? Yes. Went on rather long. I said, it always does, every year. She said to me, I'm always rather jealous of all those West End performers that get the night off, because, you know, they close all the other plays down. And I said, yeah, we don't get the night off, do we? No, we don't, do we? And so on and so forth. So we're chatting. And she said, which paper do you work for? I said, The Sun. She went, yeah. And so on and so. Anyway, it went on. There's a guy from the Daily Mail, God rest his soul, a guy called Pat Hill. So he's realising that. So after about 4 minutes, the only thing I'm thinking is, I'm talking to the Queen. I'm talking to the Queen. It's the only thing that's going through my head. And this guy's kicking me in the side of the leg. And anyway, it goes on and on and on. I think we're talking about the weather by the time Philip finally turns up. I'm going, come on, Phil, come on, get me out of here. So Phil turns up and he says, Philip, this is Kevin O'Sullivan from The Sun. And he went, oh, for God's sake, grabbed her and stormed out.
I thought of you recently again because in the book, Meghan Markle is alleged to have threatened Prince Harry. You know, I don't want to be with you unless you confirm our relationship. And Prince Harry goes out of his way to do this with the palace's help. With Jason Knopf, they put together a sternly worded release that has recently been yanked from the website. And I wanted to know what your reaction was. Is this removal significant? Because I thought of you immediately when I saw those headlines.
I must admit, I didn't know it had been taken from the website. Maybe because it's sort of ancient history now. If he's no longer a working member of the royal family. So what's the kind of relevance of having it up there, I think. But you know, you've always got to watch out for things which can get removed from websites. When King Charles was still Prince of Wales and no one knew what Camilla would be called, the official line from Clarence House was that Camilla would be Princess Consort. The the Clarence House statement on their website that she would be known as Princess Consort disappeared one day. And some journalists noticed, and we all rang up Clarence's house and said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Oh, no, nothing to see here. It's all fine. We're just tidying up the website." And we thought, none of us believed them. But we had to print what they were saying, because that's what they were saying. And lo and behold, a small number of years later, the Queen says, she'll be known as Queen Consort.
Valentino, we're 2 minutes in and you're already dropping bombs. I love talking to you. This is like, I'm already loving this conversation. Now, I really have enjoyed watching, not only reading the book, but watching you tell the story of how you secured this incredible scoop about this bullying investigation. But throughout the process of watching you discuss it, I've really not seen you talk about whether or not there were any hesitations when it came, like when you were approached about it, was there any doubt in your mind that these could be authentic? Was there just so much evidence thrown at you initially that you thought, I'm onto something here and I've really got to pursue it?
The central allegation, I was convinced of the truth of it. I was very familiar with the content of the famous email that Jason Knauf sent to the private secretary, saying that this was going on. And also I spoke to other people who backed up the story, sort of witnesses to the sort of thing which had gone on. And I saw WhatsApp messages that had happened, which again backed up the same thing. I had conversations, not lengthy conversations, but I had conversations with some of the people who were bullied. And it's interesting, they didn't want to have long or detailed conversations because they were still so traumatized by what they'd gone through. But the conversations, were long enough, detailed enough for me to be convinced of the truth of it. And my bosses at the paper at the Times, and also the newspaper's lawyer, we went to great lengths to make sure the story was copper bottom. It was absolutely tight because, we'd seen what had happened with Meghan and the Mail on Sunday when they printed their story, which they quoted from the letter which Meghan had sent to her father. They got sued, and we all know what happened there. Meghan won. So we wanted to make sure there were going to be no holes in our story that Meghan, obviously very litigious, could exploit. And what was interesting is that before publication, we got these long letters from Meghan's lawyers, threatening all sorts of stuff and saying the story was made up and it was a smear campaign, all sorts of things, and denying detail. And after we published, didn't hear a word from them. Not one word.
Also, I thought it was interesting because it felt like at the time, Meghan's team really tried to paint this as another smear campaign by the palace. But in reality, it really didn't. It reflected quite poorly on the palace, that the palace would allow something like that to actually happen. So I didn't understand Harry and Meghan's team trying to blame it on the palace and Harry specifically.
You're quite right there, Kinsey, quite right. They claimed it was a smear campaign by the palace, but, I know that the people who I was talking to me were not talking with palace permission, and they knew it wouldn't necessarily go down well with the palace. And yes, it did reflect badly on the palace, because what the palace did was nothing. So when these allegations were raised, sort of 2.5 years before I wrote the story, it sort of went up the chain, and people were they were paralyzed. They didn't know what to do because of course they hadn't encountered this sort of situation before. And a lot of them were, I think, secretly a bit frightened of Meghan. She was also a force to be reckoned with, and they didn't want to tangle with Harry. And so they did nothing. So these people who were victims of the bullying, the alleged bullying, felt no one had spoken up for them.
I was reading an older article about you. It was about like right when you'd burst on the scene. And one of the things that the journalist said about you and why they felt like you really were connecting with people was that you were just so fearless and authentic. And I'm watching Meghan Markle's new show, thinking if there is one thing she lacks, it's authenticity. Why is it so hard for her?
Authentic is not her strength, is it? No, she's. I don't know why it's so difficult for her just to be normal, just to be a normal person. You know, not everyone's exciting, not everyone's particularly witty or got something that makes them unique, but I think everyone is pretty much likable if they're authentic. You know, you can give a good representation of just about anybody, particularly if you've got the sort of team she has behind her. And yet, despite all of that, what you see on the screen is so unlikable, it's not relatable, it's inauthentic, as you said, and it just comes off as strange in parts. Like, this is someone who does not exist in the real world. She's in some sort of parallel universe where she thinks what she's producing for this program, this content, is some idealistic version of, you know, of herself. But it just doesn't translate. It doesn't come across that way. So I don't know. I don't know if she's always been like this or whether this has been something since she married into the royal family. But gosh, I didn't like her from the start, I've got to say. And that was unusual. Back in that, like now everyone bags Meghan. It's like a national sport in Australia anyway. But when everybody adored her, when everyone was just so excited about her joining the royal family and she was going to be the best thing, and everyone, because Harry was for so long the favourite along with the Queen, those two were the two favourite royals, and they loved Meghan as well. I mean, this is the thing that this couple have tried to memory hold, that, you know, the British press was so nasty and the British public was so, no, she was adored. The adoration was over the top. And I remember, because I was one of the very few here in Australia who was like, nah, I can see red flags everywhere.
I'm so impressed by that. Do you remember specifically anything that stood out to you as to why? I mean, of course, we can look back now and be like, okay, only her mom was at her freaking second wedding. I mean, that's crazy. But other than that, she really, to me, played the part well of Little Miss. I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so lucky to be
It
here.
was too much. To me, was, again, I just saw that it was inauthentic to me from the start. It was too much. I felt like she was putting on like she was putting on an act. It was not genuine. It was almost too syrupy. So no, I don't know. I just, right from the start, I was like, I'm not buying whatever this girl's selling. And in the early days,
Now it's jam that she's selling, by the way.
now she's, well, is she? Because I don't think you can actually order any jams. I'm fascinated by this bizarre wellness website, was it lifestyle website she has with a stupid name that she's now changed, that doesn't seem to actually sell anything. So I'm wondering, where's the income coming from? Because normally when you get into that sort of business, you do some business. She's not selling anything, Kinsey. What's going on?
Exactly. Well, you are in the business of TV, making good TV. And, you know, when we work in this space, we're constantly looking at analytics and numbers. And they've even got it down to when people switch off the TV. So people can tell you, hey, this person, they don't like when you talk about this topic. So let's not talk about this topic anymore. Now, Meghan Markle, and we've talked about the new show, For the Love of God, has a second season coming out. It's already been filmed. Exactly. It's already been filmed. But what nobody has reported yet, except for Deadline Hollywood here, has reported that Meghan had the second season already greenlit. So my question to you is, as an entertainer, perhaps did Meghan's team secure the 2 seasons before agreeing to do anything to avoid the humiliation of being canceled after, because these shows are cheap, to avoid the humiliation?
Well, they're not doing her any favors by having a second season. I'm sure they're doing themselves favors because it keeps them in a job. So good for them. But unless it's the content is going to be dramatically different, and I don't know how that's going to be the case with her as the subject matter as well as being an executive producer, unless it's going to be a dramatic different program, no one's interested. People are watching just to mock it. People are watching it for giggles and for mockery. It's so I don't know why she would want to be presented like that. I mean, it's not like she needs the money. It's not like she needs the fame. People know who she is. So why she subjects herself to this is beyond me. I don't know if she's just poorly advised. She's got a bunch of yes people around her who say, well, this is going to change your public persona. Everyone's going to love this Meghan version of Meghan. But I just don't understand why, if you've got the life she has, she's a mum of 2 young kids, she's got all the money that she'll ever need, she's got the fame, why produce absolutely full content that you know is just going to be mocked? That is just no good. And it's not even like, if it was a passion project and she didn't care about the criticism, she just wanted to get some, but this is not a passion project. It's vacuous. It's just the worst of reality TV. It makes Keeping Up with the Kardashians seem like Citizen Kane. This is trash. I mean, at least Keeping Up with the Kardashians, it's got raw bits. Yeah, it's overproduced in other parts, but there's things there that would make those individuals feel uncomfortable about it being aired. But they understand that if you want to get a bundle of money for showcasing your life, you've actually got to showcase a few real pieces, not just the glossy version that you want the world to see.
Well, we did have a lot of fun, didn't we? Thank you all once again for coming along on this royally splendid adventure. And I look forward to another jam, pun to Meghan Markle's jam-packed year. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite moment from this year has been. Did we miss something? Should we have included something that we didn't? Because you can slap us on the hand. You're the boss around here. And don't forget to subscribe to Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Thanks so much.